We've all seen the massive contracts that Major League Baseball players can sign. In fact, I would say that north of 100 players have signed $100 million deals or more in Major League Baseball. Yet, what I don't think people quite realize is what is the approach and what is the stair step to get to that point? Because it's not really an all or nothing thing with baseball. There's different financial incentives depending on how much service time you have, depending on if you're on the 40-man roster, depending on how you get drafted and what kind of contract you sign, but it can be so confusing. So in today's video, I'm going to walk through everything that you need to understand from the day that you get drafted to the day that hopefully you sign a $100 million contract. Hey everyone, if we haven't met before, my name is Jacob Turner. I'm a former Major League Baseball player with the 9th overall pick in the 2009 MLB draft, and I now run a financial planning company called Moment Private Wealth, where we specifically help athletes and entrepreneurs build and protect wealth. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through the different levels that it takes to get to that $100 million contract, and we're going to walk through all the different financial incentives that come along the way. So let's start at the baseline level. How do you even get into organized baseball? Step one is you get drafted. Now, when I say get drafted, what is the biggest financial incentive that comes with that? You get a signing bonus. How that signing bonus is paid out is typically 50% in year one, 50% in year two. For most of the players that we work with, they're signing for millions of dollars in the draft. But there's a little bit of caveat to that. That signing bonus means that they have team control for the next 4 to 5 years, depending on how young they are. So what that means is if you're an 18-year-old and you sign in the draft and you sign with the St. Louis Cardinals and they give you millions of dollars, they now have your rights for the next 5 years. And in that time frame, what do you earn? Well, minor league baseball salary right now is about $30,000 per year. So while you got millions of dollars potentially up front, right now you're going to make about $30,000 per year in the minor leagues. That's the first step to get into organized baseball. The next step is actually getting put on the 40-man roster. So what does the 40-man roster mean? The 40-man roster means simply this. You have the opportunity to go from the 40-man roster to then be activated onto the active roster. Let me make something clear. The 40-man roster is not what you see on TV or what you see on ESPN for Sunday Night Baseball. That's the active roster. The step before that is to get on the 40-man roster. On the 40-man roster, most first-year 40-man players will make around $62,000 for the full year. So again, not a massive amount of money. Yet, there are some other benefits of being on the 40-man roster. You get really good health insurance, so you get different health insurance if you're on the 40-man roster versus if you're in minor league baseball. And then you have the opportunity then to be activated to the active roster. Now, if you get to the major leagues and you're on the active roster, what are the biggest benefits there? Well, the biggest benefit is your salary goes from about $62,000 up to $760,000 in 2025. That's what the league minimum salary is. So to recap where we're at, you get drafted, you get your signing bonus. You get roughly $30,000 in salary in the minor leagues. The next step is to get promoted to the 40-man roster. When you get promoted to the 40-man roster, you're going to make around $62,000. The next step from there is to get promoted to the big leagues, the active roster, where the league minimum salary right now is $760,000. Okay, so now we're in the big leagues, but we're still not at that $100 million contract like we talked about. So let's talk about some of the other financial incentives that start to come along the way. Well, number one, every quarter of big league service time you get, the team will add a team contribution to the MLB 401k plan. This is a type of retirement plan. This is separate from your salary. In 2025, those contributions will total $70,000. So $70,000 divided by 4 is how that's broken down. Each quarter a player gets on the active roster, they will get one of those contributions into their 401k plan. This comes from team profit sharing. This comes from teams going over the luxury tax amount. Some of that money is going back to players in their MLB 401k plan. So we have our MLB salary, we have our 401k contributions, we have our health insurance. What's the next big step that players can get to? Well, at 3 years of MLB service time, now when I say MLB service time, what I mean is you have to be on the active roster for 3 full seasons, you can get to something called arbitration. What arbitration is, and it simply works like this. They take your stats and they compare and contrast to former players and what they signed for. So first year arbitration players have signed for anywhere from a couple $100,000 up to a few $1 million a year. And it's kind of this comparison game of saying, okay, here's what your stats looked like. Here's a player last year that went through a first year arbitration, and here's what they signed for. But you are going to make more money than the league minimum. Now, for the next 2 years that follow that, years 4 and years 5, you're also going to be arbitration eligible. And what that means is, with each successive year, if the team wants to keep your control, they have to be able to pay you basically more money than you made the previous year in arbitration. This is a way for players to have really significant one-year deals, but they're still not at MLB free agency. There is one step in the interim when you're in this arbitration eligible stage where you can get another benefit from having MLB service time. At 4 years of MLB service time, you are now eligible to stay on that amazing healthcare plan that I mentioned earlier in retirement. So when you get done playing, you can actually stay on that plan. But there is a caveat to that. You have to pay for that plan. So I've done some videos around what that plan looks like. You can check those out. The next step after MLB arbitration is to get to MLB free agency. So we started this video by talking about MLB free agency and the fact that there's been lots of players that have now signed deals for $100 million or more. But the reality of this is simply this. For a player to get to the big leagues, I want to run some numbers by you. If you're a first round draft pick, you have about a 1 in 3 chance of never playing one day in the big leagues. Okay. After the first round, that drops precipitously down. To get to MLB free agency, which is 6 years of MLB service time, you have about a 25% chance of all the guys that just play one day in the big leagues just to get to that point. And that 25% does not account for many of the players that get there that aren't going to sign the $100 million deal. But let's say we get to our MLB free agency, that means we have 6 years of MLB service time, which means we've been getting 401k contributions the whole time, we've been making the league minimum, and then we've gone through 3 years of arbitration. And now we get to MLB free agency, which just simply means this. You have the opportunity to put your services out there, to put your talent out there for every single team to bid on. And that is what creates a frenzy of players being able to get $100+ million deals. So let's say we sign our $100 million deal. What comes next in this approach of understanding how money works with Major League Baseball? Well, at 10 years of MLB service time, you are then eligible for full pension. So remember I talked earlier about this idea that you could have 1/4 of MLB service time would give you 401k contributions? Well, every 1/4 of 1 year of MLB service time also gets you a pension benefit. Right now, the pension pays roughly $27,500 per year of MLB service time. So if you get to 10 years of MLB service time, that pension benefit in 2025 is roughly $275,000 per year. A pretty incredible benefit. It also goes up with cost of living. Now, only 10% of players will ever get to 10 years MLB service time. But that being said, there are plenty of players that have under 10 years of MLB service time that have accrued that MLB pension along the way. Take me, for example. I played for roughly 11 years of professional baseball, roughly 9 years at the major league level. But in that 9 years, I accrued a little more than 4 complete seasons. So what that means is I have an MLB pension that roughly will pay $27,500 times 4 when I reach the age of 62 years old. So a huge benefit outside of your salary, outside of 401k contributions. That is a massive benefit for players. What else does 10 years MLB service time? Well, it gets you something called the gold card, which in terms of economic benefit, maybe might not be as much as the MLB pension, but what it allows you to do is be able to go to any MLB stadium when you retire and get 2 tickets. Technically, they're the best tickets that the stadium has left over, and they will give them to you for free. So it allows you to be able to go to any game that you want in the future. So what I want you to understand when you watch this video is that there simply is so many factors that come with money, the financial side, and understanding all of this as an MLB player. It's not just the $100 million deal you sign. You need to understand at every step of the way, what are teams paying for and what are teams not? Some of the things that we didn't talk about in this video are things like, how does the team pay for travel? How do they pay for car shipping? What do they give you in meal money? All those things need to be understood as you're going through this MLB journey. So if you're anything like me and you want to get smarter with your money and you want to make sure that you maximize your career earnings, make sure you like and subscribe and follow along so you don't miss any future videos. As always, my goal is to help you get smarter with your money. Until next time, my friends.